If true, you told Admiral Hackett to assist the Destiny Ascension, costing hundreds
Take
of
this,
human
bitch.
lives.
I've had enough of your disingenuous assertions.
Yo, what is up guys, it's Tyrannic Swine here and welcome to another game review. This time I am reviewing Mass Effect 2, the sequel to Mass Effect 1. Now, the story begins on the Normandy SR-1 and it becomes under attack from an unknown alien group called the Collectors. The Normandy is destroyed along with Shepard being killed. 2 years pass and Shepard is being reconstructed by an organization known as Cerberus who want Shepard to find a way to stop the Collectors from abducting humans from colonies. So Shepard builds a team of new and old friends to take on the Collectors so that they can stop them from abducting humans from their colonies. Now, this is a big game. Like the first Mass Effect, this is a big game, but the story is a lot more developed in this one compared to the first Mass Effect. In the first Mass Effect game, there was like, what, 4 or 5 major missions where there was story development, and they just had a lot of side quests. Mass Effect 2 relies more on story and character development this time around. Not only paying attention to the story, but also paying attention to the characters along the way. Mass Effect 1, you really just get introduced to the characters, whereas in Mass Effect 2, you have newer characters along with the ones from the first game, and you get to find out more and more about them. And Mass Effect 2 is one of those games that is known for having good character development. And to be honest, in my opinion, it's probably one of the best games I've played that does character development. And obviously over time there is loyalty missions in the game for each of your companions, which is obviously a necessary thing, because otherwise when you get to the final mission of the game, having your crewmates' loyalty will definitely improve your chances of succeeding, especially when you need to make decisions that requires you needing them. Now, the characters in this game are really done well. Each of them is a likable character, though there's probably like 1 or 2 that could have been done a little bit better, but honestly, overall, the characters in this game were done perfectly well. The voice acting is brilliant. Compared to the first Mass Effect game, the acting is phenomenal. Especially when you get to talk to the guys, and they just say like some of the most funniest of things, like when you're talking to them on Normandy or when you're pulling a mission. These guys know when to crack a joke, and it's always great to see that. But there's always a time when they are serious too. So, so Mass Effect 2, and it's not like, along with that, there is returning characters, like I said before. Not just like main characters, but there's also characters that you saw in the first Mass Effect game that will also be around in Mass Effect 2. And since it's only been 2 years, so that's not really a long time. But nonetheless, I think the characters in this game were done particularly well, especially since you're going to need their loyalty for the final mission. It's nice to see that there is a sort of a character mechanic that is necessary for you for winning the game in the best way possible. And not only that, when you're traveling around the galaxy, there is the conversation wheel yet again. This time it's a little bit different. I mean, it's mostly the same from Mass Effect 1. You have like a bunch of dialogue options, and then you have, when you have enough Paragon or Renegade, you have your blue and red option. But then there's also this interruption symbol, which either shows a Paragon or a Renegade interruption symbol, which will further prolong a conversation or get it done a quicker way, and it will get you more Paragon or Renegade. I think this is a nice little addition to the whole conversation system, like if something comes up and then you can just do that, and it felt like it was a very necessary thing. So yeah, overall the characters and the story was done particularly very well. Now let's talk about the mechanics of the game. Now when you begin the game, you can select the different type of class that you want to be, or you can import your save data from the first Mass Effect game if you have it available. Now of course, like before, there is 6 different classes. You have Soldier, Vanguard, Infiltrator, Adept, Engineer, and Sentinel. and each of these classes are given a few more powers compared to the first Mass Effect game. There is a lot more powers overall throughout this game, and there are a lot more effective in this game. They actually do something. Some of the powers in the first Mass Effect game didn't feel like they did as much as you wanted them to do, but in this game, a lot of the powers, like some like warp and I think even Overload, have been improved especially. And there's a few new powers as well, like Incinerate, Concussive Shot, Combat Drone. There's a lot more new powers in this game, and they're all done specifically well, since each of the characters in this game have their own powers depending on the class they are specified for. And excuse me, and not only that, you can only have a specific amount of weapons depending on your class. In Mass Effect 1, you technically have all the weapons, but you can only use some effectively. Whereas in Mass Effect 2, it gets rid of the weapons that are unnecessary for that class and only has like a certain amount. Though every class will have a heavy weapon, so you don't need to worry about that. And this time there is also a few new additional health type systems for the enemies. Not only is there shields and not the usual red health, there's also armor and barriers, which is what the biotics have for their shields. And each of the powers that your companion will have will be effective against this. And so it's always best to have a mixture of powers to bring with you so that they are effective for each of the combat situations, along with your own character. Now once again I went for being the soldier character, but in this game the soldier character is a bit more useful, especially since some of their powers are a bit more effective against the enemy, since they have like a different firing ammo, and hell, even the concussive shot is even useful at times. Now, there is a decent amount of weapons in this game. Compared to the first Mass Effect game, the weapons were actually fairly... the weapons in the first Mass Effect game tended to tended to have infinite ammo, but would overheat if you fired too much. In this game, you now have limited ammunition, but I felt like this was a much more better mechanic. And even though Mass Effect 1 had weapon variety, this Mass Effect game has more weapon designs, and I felt that was a definite improvement. Sure, there may not be as many weapons as Mass Effect 1, but to be honest, that didn't really annoy me, since all I saw in the first Mass Effect game was a few guns, but that just had different colours, and that sort of annoyed me. But you have, I think, 6 weapon classes. You have assault rifles, sniper rifles, shotguns, heavy pistols, submachine guns, and heavy weapons. And like I said before, each of the classes that you have can only have a certain amount of these weapons. And I'd say each of the weapons work very well for each other. They perform great depending on the upgrades that you unlock over time for you and your characters for your companions. Not only that, there is the armor customization too. And the armor customization in this game is is probably not as variety, but it's definitely a lot more interactive, since you can change every different piece of armor on your character, and even the color. And I felt like this was definitely a major upgrade, because even though there was different armors and stuff that I actually liked in the first Mass Effect game, this one felt a lot more better, since you can change it to the way you want it to be, especially since each piece has a specific thing that will help out your character. Like, one will have more shield power, shield recharge delay, more health, more weapon damage or power damage. So yeah, the armor pieces in this game were definitely done a lot more better compared to the first Mass Effect game. Now, the enemies in this game, compared to the first Mass Effect, there is a lot more different enemy types. In the first Mass Effect game, all you would go up against is either Geth, organic enemies like mercenaries and pirates, or you'd encounter the rare Threshermaw at different points in time. Mass Effect 2 has a lot more variety in its enemies. Not only do you fight against the Geth, you have the Collectors, you also, again, have mercenaries and bounty hunters, but they're actually classified as different organizations this time, giving a bit more story and lore to the universe, instead of just having random mercenaries and pirates everywhere. But the enemies in this game are probably a little bit more easier to defeat compared to Mass Effect 1. Whereas in Mass Effect 1, technically the enemies were quite stubborn, but they were pretty static. In this game, the enemies are definitely a lot more flexible. They use their own powers against you, and even like enemies like the Husks, which are melee-based enemy type, they don't have their electrical discharge from the first Mass Effect game, so this time they rely more on numbers to overpower you, and they also have their abominations and scions to back them up, making them a difficult foe at times. Now, compared to the first Mass Effect game, I don't think Mass Effect 2 is as difficult as the first Mass Effect game, but in some areas it can be. There are some areas of this game that are tremendously difficult unless you bring the right partners, because the powers are a major necessity if you're going to be playing this game on the hardest difficulty, and along with the equipment that you'll bring along, which will help out the mission. But yeah, overall I think the enemies in this game were done particularly well. There's not just like there's like infantry enemy types, light enemy types, heavy weapons, giant mechs even. There's a lot more enemy types in this game, and I think this was definitely a good thing, since if you want to up the difficulty a bit more, bring in some more enemy types, since there wasn't really any big sort of enemy types in the first Mass Effect game. You just really went up against either biotic enemies, mercenaries and pirates, and the Geth. And the only big enemy you'd find in Mass Effect 1 was probably the Geth Primes and Juggernauts, but that was really it. The leveling up system in this game compared to the first Mass Effect game isn't as big. This time your character is limited to only 30 levels, where Mass Effect 1 only had 60. But even though you wouldn't complete, and well, again, the same as in Mass Effect 1, you wouldn't earn enough points to fully rank up all the powers. And it's the same with Mass Effect 2. But the thing is, most of the powers in Mass Effect 1, or most of the ranking up stats points, weren't as useful as they could have been, like some like medicine, fitness. Well, fitness was very useful, but there was some power ranking up parts in Mass Effect 1 that were not entirely necessary. Mass Effect 2, pretty much all of them are necessary, especially when you get to the end, the final one, where you can split it into like two, where you can pick either one attribute, which will either help yourself or your teammate, or another attribute that can help out the entire team. Like, for example, when you get to the end of the different types of ammo, you'll either have a special type of ammo, which will be very effective, or it'll be spread to all of your teammates, which is actually pretty decent. But the powers in this game, though despite not as many compared to the first Mass Effect game, I think pretty much they're all fairly effective and well done. Your companions have like pretty much 3 powers at the time, where you can have like probably 7 or 8, and your companions can only have 2 weapons as well, whereas you, depending on your class, can have a certain amount. And I don't know if this was a good or a bad thing, giving your partners or companions 2 weapons, but it pretty much goes with like the different class that they are, so it makes a lot of sense. So yeah, the enemies were particularly challenging at the time, and the leveling up system, though not as big, is still, well, decently done. Now let's talk about the level design. Now the level design was done very well in this game, compared to the first Mass Effect game, where most of the side missions that you go to would be quite repetitive since they'd have the same building design and structures. Mass Effect 2 actually gets rid of that problem, and instead it means sacrificing the Mako to have a decent level design system, as you're on the ground pretty much most of the time in this game. But overall, I think that was a necessary sacrifice to make sure that the level designs were nice and variative. And they actually are, compared to the first Mass Effect game. Especially the main missions, like the recruitment, loyalty missions, they were all done particularly well. And each of them are sort of different in their own way. Not all of the missions are like run and gun and stuff like that, where you have to fight enemies. Sometimes you have to do a sort of infiltration sort of thing. You have to like keep an eye on a target for your friend, or you have to like do some other stuff, just basically find something. And yeah, so the level designs were done particularly well, and I really did like them. They like showed that this world was much more than it is. And there was a lot more to the way everything was. It's like, it shows more things, does Mass Effect 2 than Mass Effect 1 does. And the soundtrack has been done particularly well. Actually, no, it's amazing. Compared to the first Mass Effect, the music is done much better. The first Mass Effect would repeat its soundtracks, especially during the side missions, and it would only be the main missions that would have a different soundtrack. Whereas this game, each mission in some way has their own soundtrack, and that is really done very well. Especially the final mission, which is possibly the best part of the entire game for a soundtrack. The cover-based system that was in the first Mass Effect game is definitely improved upon even more in this game. It resembles more like Gears of War in this game, but I think that was necessary since the cover-based system in Mass Effect 1 was not very useful and would tend to get you killed more than it would help you. I never really took cover much in Mass Effect 1, but this game at least it was a lot more useful. Since the first Normandy in this game gets destroyed, you have a new and improved Normandy in this one, and it looks cool as hell. And it's basically your base for the entire game, apart from a few set places that you can go to from time to time again, like the Citadel, Chicunka, Ilium, and Omega. Them, which are all very different places. It shows how messed up the galaxy can be at times and how pretty it can be, but show that there's a shadow behind that prettiness. You basically go around talking to people and stuff. Not only that, there is a sort of, the upgrading system is a little bit more different in this one for your weapons and armor. And for your weapons and armor in the first game, you would have to find like attachments and stuff like that. This game, you have to find upgrades on various missions, and then you can go around the galaxy scanning planets for minerals. Now, you can even get upgrades to your weapons and armor by either buying stuff at the Citadel, Chicunka, and like any of the major planets and places, or by finding these upgrades and then getting minerals to unlock them, which is very necessary for like surviving. And you can also talk to your companions on the Normandy to like upgrade themselves, or the Normandy, which is also another important factor for completing the final mission. And so they definitely did take a lot of note in making sure that everything that you do is actually worth doing, so you can have the highest possible chance of success. And I think that was a very good thing. So yeah, mostly overall the design, level design, the soundtrack, like the way everything, like the design of these worlds were all done very well. Now let's talk about a few extra things, like for example, this game has a few boss battles in it. Mass Effect 1 did have boss battles, but there weren't particularly that many, I think. Like, you had the final boss battle, and then I think there was a few others, but I can't remember what they are. There's like at least 2 or 3. The boss battles in this game were done a bit better, I'd say. Probably not much better, but it was still done very effectively, and they were very fun to play and quite challenging at times, since you either had a limited amount of time to kill this thing or it would kill you, and it can be quite difficult since they would have backup with them, the same as the first Mass Effect game. But yeah, the boss battles can be quite difficult to take on depending on the difficulty and what weapons and teammates you brought with you, which would be the most effective against them. Now, there is a few there's probably a few things. Like, the first Mass Effect game, you'd have this sort of infinite, like, jogging sprint, and then you'd have, like, your sort of rush speed. It's no longer in this game, but instead you just have limited sprint, which is okay. I don't know why this annoys me, but apparently the soldier class is the only class where you can't use SMGs. I mean, I can kind of get it since you have the assault rifle and the shotgun, so it wouldn't be necessary. There is a few other things, like some loyalty missions in this game, you need to make sure you have a good amount of Paragon or Renegade, because at least 2 of the loyalty missions where you have some of your shipmates will argue with each other, and you either have to like pick one, which is always a bad option, or if you have enough Paragon or Renegade, you can go for those options, which will save your ass. Because if you pick one of them, pick one of your teammates, and the other teammate's loyalty will go down, and that really can affect the mission. So yeah, there is yeah, so Mass Effect 2 overall was a particularly very well done game. It's probably one of my most favorite games of all time because of how well it's done. Sure, yes, it expands a lot more upon Mass Effect 1, even though there's a few things that probably downgrades, like the ranking and probably the amount of weapons, and it's kind of it really. Probably maybe the character, your companion's customization, because when you finish a loyalty mission, you can sort of change the appearance of your companions. So, I mean, they're not all that decent looking, to be honest. It's just a little bit of a difference, unless you get the DLC appearance packs, which actually does help out that situation. But they could have put a bit more effort into like making your companions look a bit more different. But these are all little little ticks against everything else that just makes this game really damn good. So overall, Mass Effect 2 was a spectacular game, and I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10. So that is my review of Mass Effect 2. That's 2 down and 1 more to go before the release of Mass Effect Andromeda. You definitely know I'm gonna be playing that one pretty much as soon as it comes out. So, hope you guys have enjoyed this review. Leave a like down below, subscribe, comment on what you think is right or even wrong with the game I could have missed out or anything. And I shall see you guys in the next random video.